When the cop came out, it turned out to be Victor, walking like he owned the whole world with 2 officers behind him. The woman ran over to him and pointed at me.
Officer, he was watching that little boy. I think he was trying to take him. The kid looks scared. He doesn't even look like him.
Jamal jumped off the slide and ran to me. I knelt and held him close, trying to keep calm, even though my whole body was shaking. Victor looked me up and down like he just found gold. Well. Looks like we've got another case of baby snatching. Happens more than people think. Black men pretending these kids are theirs. It's always the same story. He knew who we were. He knew Jamal was my son, but he kept going, feeding the lie, putting on a show for the other officers and parents nearby. My mouth was dry. I wanted to scream, but I knew I had to stay calm for Jamal. Officer, I don't understand what you're doing, but you and I know that this is my son. Just because he's white and I'm black doesn't mean that he's not mine. Oh wow, it's a crazy world, isn't it? I never knew that I, a trained cop, would one day be educated by a low-life kidnapper. Black people are never beating the allegations. You're also rude and mannerless. I've never heard anything good about this race. Hi, I'm Malik, and this is my story. I have a son who's 8. His name is Jamal. His mother, who's a white woman, passed out just a few years after he was born, so I've been the one taking care of him. We live in a neighborhood where every lawn looks perfect, like something out of a magazine. But behind all of that, there's a lot of ugliness people don't want to talk about. We're the only black family here. That means every day feels like walking through a place we're not supposed to be in. People stare every time. While some are just curious, others are not so nice. But the worst one? That's Victor. He lives right next door. Same type of house, but his heart's nothing like ours. He's a cop, and he makes sure everyone knows it. There's an old Confederate flag sticker on his truck. Even though it was faded, he refused to take it off. He never tried to pretend he liked us. From the start, you could feel it in the way he looked at us. Especially Jamal. He always made it look like my son playing outside was some kind of danger to the street. Look at you walking around like you belong here. You don't, and you never will. Keep that kid of yours in check, or I will. That was the first time he said anything to me. We had only been living there for about a month. I didn't say anything, but I think my silence was wrong, because from there, things only got worse. Every little chance, he came at us with something. One afternoon, I took Jamal to the park so he could run around and just be a kid. He loved the jungle gym. I sat on a bench nearby, watching him laugh as he climbed and played. Then I noticed a white woman who was standing by the swings. She kept looking at us. She'd look at Jamal, then at me. At first, I ignored it because we were used to the stares. But this time, I noticed it wasn't the usual stare. She pulled out her phone and started whispering into it. Next thing I know, a police car pulled up. I saw Jamal freeze on the slide. I stood up immediately because I already had a feeling of how this was going to go. When the cop came out, it turned out to be Victor. Walking like he owned the whole world with 2 officers behind him. The woman ran over to him and pointed at me.
Officer, he was watching that little boy. I think he was trying to take him. The kid looks scared. He doesn't even look like him.
Jamal jumped off the slide and ran to me. I knelt and held him close, trying to keep calm, even though my whole body was shaking. Victor looked me up and down like he'd just found gold. Well. Looks like we've got another case of baby snatching. Happens more than people think. Black men pretending these kids are theirs. It's always the same story. He knew who we were. He knew Jamal was my son, but he kept going, feeding the lie, putting on a show for the other officers and parents nearby. My mouth was dry. I wanted to scream, but I knew I had to stay calm for Jamal. Officer, I don't understand what you're doing, but you and I know that this is my son. Just because he's white and I'm black doesn't mean that he's not mine. Oh wow, it's a crazy world, isn't it? I never knew that I, a trained cop, would one day be educated by a low-life kidnapper. Black people are never beating the allegations. You're also rude and mannerless. I've never heard anything good about this race. I was shocked beyond words. I knew he hated me, but to this extent. How could he call me a kidnapper despite knowing that Jamal was my son? I was about to speak when someone beat me to it. It was Mrs. Thompson, an older woman from our street.
That's Malik, and that's his son Jamal. They've lived in our street for over a year. You should be ashamed of yourself, Victor. How can a grown man be as childish as this? You know it's a criminal offense to lie like this.
I pulled out my phone and showed the officers pictures of me, Jamal, and my late wife together. Birthday parties, school events, everything to prove that I and Mrs. Thompson were right. The woman who accused me immediately started apologizing.
I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know.
She looked so embarrassed. And Victor? He didn't say a word. He just stared at me with an angry face, then turned around and walked off like nothing happened. A few days after that happened, I got home early from work and saw Jamal with Victor, standing by the mailbox. Victor was in his uniform, crouched down and talking to Jamal like they were friends, but Jamal wasn't smiling. He looked confused, nervous. I dropped the bags and rushed over. Then I heard what he was saying to my son.
You know, your dad's not a good man, kid. Some people pretend to be nice, but they're really dangerous inside. You'll understand when you're older and in the hands of better people.
I lost it. How could he say such things to a child? I grabbed Jamal's arm and pulled him back. Don't you ever talk to my son again. You hear me? Stay away from him, or I swear I'll report you. I'm done playing nice.
Oh, really? Report me? And what do you think that'll do, Malik? I am the system. Go ahead. Nobody's gonna touch me.
He was right. He was a cop. I knew if I ever tried to report him, it could go wrong. He was a cop, and he was white. Meanwhile, I was just a black normal worker. I let it slide and took my son in. A week later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it and saw a woman holding a folder. She said she was from Child Services and that someone had reported me for child neglect. My heart sank. I immediately knew who did it. The report didn't have a name, but I didn't need one. Victor's hands were all over it. He was really out to end me, and it made me frustrated. For weeks, my life became a nightmare. I had to prove I was a good father. They came to inspect the house, looked through Jamal's things, and even talked to his teachers. I had to go to court, bring people from work to speak on my behalf. I made sure Jamal's clothes were always clean, his homework double-checked, his lunch packed just right. But none of it stopped the fear that they'd take him from me. And still, Victor wasn't done. It was so obvious that he was after my downfall, even though I never did anything bad to him. One night, I came home and saw police cars outside my house. Victor was standing on my lawn, talking to two officers. I parked and rushed toward them, but they stopped me. They said they found drugs in my garage. A small plastic bag filled with white powder tucked behind my toolbox. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I don't use drugs. Never have, matter of fact. But when I looked at Victor, he was smiling. That alone told me that he wanted and planned all of it. The officers grabbed me, pulled my hands behind my back, and cuffed me right there in front of my house. Jamal stood on the porch, crying. Another woman from Child Services showed up and took him away. I was shouting to him that I loved him, that everything would be okay, but I could barely hear my own voice through his screaming. The next 2 months were the worst of my life. They let me out on bail, but Jamal was placed in foster care. I barely slept or ate. I lived inside my lawyer's office, desperately trying to clear my name. I knew the drugs were planted. I just had to prove it. I hired a private investigator. He started digging into Victor's past. Turns out, he had done this kind of thing before. He'd gone after other Black and Latino families, called in fake reports, lied on paper, made people's lives hell, and no one had stopped him, because he was a cop, an evil, trusted one. But now I had a reason to fight harder than ever. My investigator found a neighbor who saw Victor sneaking into my garage the night before the police raid. We brought it to court. 63 days after they arrested me, the charges were dropped. The court ruled there wasn't enough proof, and I was free. More importantly, Jamal came home. But I wasn't finished. I couldn't let it end like that. Victor had taken 2 months from my son's life, so he had to pay. I started watching him and every move he made. My investigator kept digging. That's when we found the real dirt. Apparently, Victor had been stealing money from a local charity where he worked part-time. Donations, event funds, all of it. He used his badge to cover his tracks. Even more, he'd cheated on his wife countless times and boasted about his wife being too dumb to catch him. We gathered it all. I even found an audio clip of him bragging about extra cash to another officer. I didn't stop there. I contacted different families he'd hurt unjustly. One day, the town held a big meeting. I stood up during the public comment time and told the whole room what he'd done. I played the recordings and showed the proof. Victor sat in the back, his face pale. People who had smiled at him for years now looked at him in disgust. That night, the charity kicked him off the board. The police department suspended him. His friends stopped calling. His wife packed her bags and left. One evening, he came to my house. He looked so different without his badge and uniform. He was wearing just jeans and a dirty shirt.
Malik, please, I messed up. I was wrong for doing all of that to you, but I need your help, please. They're talking about charging me. I'll lose everything. You can stop this. Just tell them I'm not a bad guy.
You're hilarious, Victor. You? Need my help? I can't believe you. You built this mess, not me. If there's an opportunity to make you more miserable, I'll gladly take it, because you deserve it. Get lost, loser. I slammed the door in his face. He came back the next day, then again the day after that. I quickly filed a restraining order. On the fourth visit, he completely lost it, banging on my door and yelling my name like a madman.
Please, Malik, I'm begging you. I can't go to prison. You don't understand. I'm not like those people. I'll die in there.
I quickly called 911. When the cops came, they tackled him right on my lawn. He cried out, begging, but no one listened. It was even his old co-workers who showed up to arrest him. This time, the law didn't protect him. He was charged with embezzlement, planting evidence, harassment, and abuse of power. The judge gave him 15 years, no parole for 10. But prison wasn't even the worst part for him. 6 months in, Victor tried to escape. He got caught sneaking through a loading dock and was shot in the leg by a guard. That would have been the end of it. But he had diabetes. The wound got infected. Doctors tried treating it, but nothing helped. They had to amputate his leg below the knee. Now he's stuck in a wheelchair, stuck in a prison cell, and forgotten by the same system he once used to hurt others. Thanks for watching. It didn't take long for them to notice. One day, they stormed into my office, causing a scene.
You ungrateful brat. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us? How dare you cut us off?
That old hag poisoned your mind, huh? You're our son, and we deserve our share. She's dead now. You can just sell everything off. We'll share the money equally and never see each other again.
You're both so pathetic. Even if Grandma hadn't given me this instruction, I swear, I'd have still cut you both off. You deserve nothing from me. They cursed me, insulted me, and threatened me, but I refused to dance to their tunes. They had drained Grandma while she was alive. They wouldn't take a single cent from me now that she was gone. For 2 weeks straight, my parents harassed me. They showed up at my office, at my house, even at restaurants where I had meetings. Always screaming and demanding and threatening. And when they realized their tantrums weren't working, they took the next step. They sued me. I wasn't even surprised. The court summons arrived on my desk, stating that they were taking legal action against me for denying them their rightful inheritance. My parents were the definition of privilege, not the kind that came from hard work, but the kind that clung like parasites to someone else's success. My dad's mother, my grandmother, was a wealthy businesswoman. She owned properties, had stocks in major companies, and still, even in her old age, made smart investments. But instead of following in her footsteps, my parents saw her wealth as their personal bank account. My dad didn't work, neither did my mom. They didn't need to, not when Grandma was there to fund their every whim. Dad often proposed business ideas to Grandma, and whenever she sent him money, he and Mom would just lavish it on themselves. One week, they were in Paris, drinking champagne under the Eiffel Tower. The next, they were on some island, lounging on yachts and snapping pictures for their friends. They didn't care about anything but their own pleasure. My grandma once fell ill for an entire month and was on oxygen, but my dad refused to visit or take care of her. She hired nurses, but they would often only reach out when it concerned money. They were toxic and cruel to her, and I hated it. And then there was me, left behind, as always, They never brought me along, never even called while they were away. But I wasn't completely alone, at least not at first. We had nannies, a rotating door of different women, each staying just long enough to realize how impossible my parents were before quitting. My parents treated them like servants, barking orders, belittling them, and always forgetting to pay them on time. When I was 5, I had a nanny named Elise. She was kind. She read to me at night and taught me how to tie my shoes. She stayed longer than most, nearly a year. But one day, she packed her bags and left. She hadn't been paid in 4 months. I cried when she left. She was the closest thing to a mother I had ever known. Then came Carla. She lasted 6 months before storming out, cursing in Spanish because my parents had forgotten to pay her too. By the time I turned 8, all the nannies had left. No one wanted to work for my parents anymore. And so, I was alone. At 8 years old, I learned how to take care of myself. I woke up alone. I dressed myself. I made my own breakfast, usually just dry cereal because the fridge was always empty. Mom and Dad weren't home most of the time. When they were either asleep from another drunken night out or too busy fighting over something ridiculous to notice me. I stopped expecting them to remember little things like my birthday, or parent-teacher meetings, or the fact that a child needed love and attention. The only person who ever cared was Grandma. Whenever she visited, she saw the truth. She saw how I was always in the same old clothes, how I had to heat up frozen meals for dinner, how my parents barely acknowledged my existence. Grandma often brought me dresses and all sorts of gifts, but my parents would seize them, sell them, and spend the money. I just couldn't understand why they hated me. Sometimes, I even wondered if I was adopted, or worse. When Grandma noticed how I looked during her visits, she started sneaking money into my room, stuffing cash into my pillowcase so I could at least buy food when my parents weren't around. She paid for my school supplies, sent housekeepers to clean up the mess my parents made, and even threatened to cut them off if they didn't take care of me properly. Of course, they always lied. They promised to be better, swore they'd change. And Grandma, for all her sharp instincts in business, still wanted to believe her son wasn't a lost cause. But I knew better, and deep down, so did she. I don't remember exactly when I started feeling anxious all the time, but by the time I turned 10, it had become unbearable. I was constantly on edge, jumping at every loud sound, overthinking every little thing. I had trouble sleeping, and even when I did, I'd wake up with my heart racing for no reason. Grandma noticed. She always noticed whatever concerned me. One evening, she showed up at the house unannounced. She took one look at me and saw how thin I had gotten, the dark circles under my eyes, the way my hands trembled when I spoke. Then, she made a decision.
You're coming home with me.
I didn't argue. I don't think I even had the energy to argue. My mom and dad barely reacted when she told them. My mom simply nodded, barely looking up from her phone. My dad grumbled something about letting the old bat have her way. That was it. No argument. No resistance. They let me go without a second thought, as if I'd been nothing but a bother to them. And that night, after I left with Grandma, I slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. Living with Grandma was like stepping into another world. A world where I didn't have to fend for myself, where food was always in the fridge, and someone actually asked about my day. She enrolled me in therapy immediately. I didn't want to go at first because I didn't even understand why I felt the way I did, but she insisted.
You've been through too much alone, sweetheart. You don't have to do it alone anymore.
Therapy helped. It gave me words for what I was feeling, which was anxiety, neglect, and abandonment. It helped me realize that none of it was my fault. Grandma made sure I had everything I needed. Clothes that fit, a warm bed, a good school with teachers who actually cared. She even attended my school events, sitting in the front row, clapping the loudest, making me feel like I mattered. And my parents? They never checked on me. Not once. At first it hurt. I used to wonder if they'd call, if they'd visit, if they'd suddenly realize they missed me. But they didn't. The only time I ever saw them was on social media, flaunting their extravagant lives. New vacations, new designer clothes, new luxury cars. Never once did they mention me. Eventually, I stopped expecting them to. By the time I finished high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like Grandma. I didn't just want to live off her wealth, I wanted to help her manage it. I wanted to prove to her that she had made the right choice by taking me in. When I told her I wanted to go to business school, she teared up.
I'm so proud of you, Andrew.
I poured everything I had into business school. While others partied, I studied. While some skipped lectures, I sat in the front row, absorbing every lesson. I knew what I wanted was to make Grandma proud. And I did. I graduated with distinctions, standing among the best in my class. Grandma was overjoyed. She cried when I received my final results, holding my face between her hands and kissing my forehead.
I knew you'd do it. You've always been meant for greatness.
After graduation, job offers flooded in. Prestigious firms, international companies, high-paying positions. They all wanted me. But I turned them all down. My place was with my grandma. The first year of managing the company was intense. I worked tirelessly, and the results were astounding. My grandma was so proud and impressed that she stepped down and left everything in my authority 1 year later. I ensured Grandma had everything she wanted. Anything she desired was hers. She had taken care of me when I had no one. Now, it was my turn to take care of her. But life is cruel. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to meet my grandma sitting on her favorite chair. She wasn't breathing anymore. I wept like a child. No amount of wealth or success could bring her back. The pain was unbearable, but I knew she would have wanted to be honored with a burial as dignified as the life she had lived. And I made sure of it. Her funeral was grand, filled with people whose lives she had touched. Employees, friends, business partners. But my parents? I refused to let them attend. They hadn't cared when she was alive. They had no right to mourn her in death. That was when the real problems started. After the mourning period ended, I did what Grandma had asked me to do. I cut my parents off completely. No more money. No more gifts. No more lifeline. They weren't entitled to anything. It didn't take long for them to notice. One day, they stormed into my office, causing a scene.
You ungrateful brat. After everything we did for you, this is how you repay us? How dare you cut us off?
That old hag poisoned your mind, huh? You're our son, and we deserve our share. She's dead now. You can just sell everything off. We'll share the money equally and never see each other again.
You're both so pathetic. Even if Grandma hadn't given me this instruction, I swear, I'd have still cut you both off. You deserve nothing from me. They cursed me, insulted me, and threatened me, but I refused to dance to their tunes. They had drained Grandma while she was alive. They wouldn't take a single cent from me now that she was gone. For 2 weeks straight, my parents harassed me. They showed up at my office, at my house, even at restaurants where I had meetings. Always screaming and demanding and threatening. And when they realized their tantrums weren't working, they took the next step. They sued me. I wasn't even surprised. The court summons arrived on my desk, stating that they were taking legal action against me for denying them their rightful inheritance. I laughed at their foolishness. How could they even think they could win against me? The day of the hearing arrived. My parents walked into the courtroom with so much pride and confidence. They stood before the judge, boldly presenting their so-called evidence, which was a will they claimed my grandmother had left behind, proving they were entitled to her fortune. Their first disgrace came immediately. The judge examined the document and within minutes determined it was a forgery. My parents' faces paled. They'd just committed a crime while trying to cheat. That was when I decided to end them completely. I submitted my own evidence. I'd hidden it since Grandma died. It was a legally recognized written will. She'd told her lawyer to only give it to me after she died. And then, to remove all doubts, I submitted a video recording of my grandmother, also given to me by the lawyer. In the video, Grandma repeated everything in her written will.
I declare that everything I own belongs to my grandson Andrew. My son and his wife will receive nothing.
The moment the video ended, I turned to my parents. Their smugness was gone and replaced by panic. They knew they had lost. The judge, looking at me, asked if I wished to grant them anything out of goodwill. I didn't hesitate to refuse. In fact, I want everything they own returned to me. The house, the cars, the money, everything. The judge approved it immediately, and my parents were sent to jail for 6 months for forging the document. I took the house, gave out the cars to those who needed them, and and took out every single penny in their accounts, ensuring they'd have nothing to return to when they're out of jail. After that, I opened a charity foundation in my grandmother's name, using my parents' former house as the headquarters. A week after they were released from their 6-month jail term, they showed up at one of my houses. They were homeless, wearing mismatched outfits, looking so malnourished. They begged me for a place to stay.
The streets are too cold, Andrew. We'll die out there.
I pretended to think about it. I told them to wait. Then I went inside, grabbed a bucket of ice water and dumped it over their heads. They ran away, shivering and screaming and cursing. I laughed so much. A few days later, they returned. This time, they weren't asking for shelter, just water and food because they were starving. So, I obliged and handed them expired dog food.
Dog food? How can you be so cruel? You give your starving parents expired dog food?
You're the most evil person on earth. I laughed at them before I unleashed the dogs. They ran again, screaming at the top of their lungs. That was the last time they dared to approach me. After a few months, I called my parents and told them I had forgiven them and would help them financially, on one condition. They had to go on live television and confess how they had treated me. Of course, they were desperate and agreed. They went on live TV and confessed everything. The media turned against them, showering them with insults and outrage. The next day they contacted me, expecting the financial help I had promised. But when I answered the phone, I just laughed and said, "Do you have any paperwork or contract proving what we agreed on?" When they hesitated and said no, I simply replied, "Then I didn't promise you a dime." To worsen their situation, I contacted them anonymously, claiming they had won some money and needed to sign paperwork in Mexico. Since my dad loved money but hated working, he often played the lottery online, so he and my mom easily fell for it. They foolishly believed me, and I even booked them a one-way ticket there. When they landed, I stopped answering their emails and calls, leaving them stranded. Since they love vacations, I gave them one for free. I then filed a restraining order, just to ensure they never came near me again. They never did, because they were far away. Thanks for watching.
My name is Taylor, and I have a twin sister named Kayla. We're identical in appearance, but apparently not in value, at least not in our parents' eyes. I'm going to tell you about growing up in the shadow of the golden child and how I finally stepped into the light. You might judge me for what I did in the end, but until you've lived your entire life as an afterthought, I'm not sure you can understand. Growing up, it became obvious early on that my parents had a favorite, and it wasn't me. The signs were subtle at first, but they accumulated like small paper cuts, individually insignificant, collectively unbearable. I still remember my 8th birthday party. Our parents always insisted on joint celebrations, claiming it was more practical. That year, the cake came out with elaborate sugar roses and "Happy Birthday, Kayla," written in perfect cursive. My name was squeezed into the corner as an afterthought.
Oh, look at the beautiful cake. Kayla, come blow out the candles. Taylor, you can help your sister.
But Mom, it's my birthday too. Can't we both blow them out at the same time?
Don't be difficult, Taylor. Kayla's been looking forward to this all week. You can have your turn after.
By the time it was my turn, half the party guests were already eating cake or wandering off to play. I blew out candles that had already been relit, feeling like an encore nobody asked for. As we entered our teen years, the favoritism became even more blatant. When we both tried out for the high school volleyball team, I was the one who made it. Kayla didn't. You'd think my parents would have been proud of me, right?
Oh, Kayla, sweetie, don't be upset. The coach obviously doesn't recognize real talent when she sees it.
We'll talk to the school board about this. It's completely unfair.
But Taylor made the team. Aren't you going to congratulate her?
Well, of course we're happy for Taylor too, but you know how these things work. Sometimes they just need to fill spots.
They spent the entire evening consoling Kayla. My achievement was treated like a lucky accident. Dad never came to a single one of my games that season. Too busy chauffeuring Kayla to private volleyball lessons to make sure she makes the team next year. To be honest, I was surprised that they didn't tell me to quit the team so that there was a spot for Kayla. Then there was prom. Both Kayla and I were asked by boys we liked. Her date was the captain of the debate team. Mine was a quiet boy from my art class. When the night came, Dad insisted on driving us.
Now, young man, I expect you to have Kayla home by 11, not a minute later. She's very special to us.
Yes, sir. I'll take good care of her.
And you, what's your name again?
It's Michael, sir. We've met 3 times.
Right. Just follow the same rules, I guess.
He didn't even look at Michael when he said it. Like my date was an afterthought, just like me. The college years were when things really came to a head. I'd worked incredibly hard, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while working part-time jobs to save for tuition. Kayla had average grades and spent most weekends partying. When acceptance letters came, I got into an Ivy League school with a partial scholarship. Kayla got into a state college. You can guess which achievement got celebrated.
Congratulations, Kayla. State University has such a beautiful campus. We're so proud of you for getting in.
This calls for a special dinner. I'm making reservations at Giovanni's.
I got accepted to Cornell with a scholarship.
That's nice, honey. Will you be wearing that blouse to dinner? Maybe you should borrow something of Kayla's clothes so that you don't look so ratty.
The next 4 years were a blessing in disguise. Being hundreds of miles away from my family gave me room to breathe, to discover who I was outside of being a less impressive version of Kayla. I excelled in my classes, made genuine friends who valued me, and started building a life that had nothing to do with the dynamics of my childhood home. After graduation, I moved to Chicago, landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm, and limited my family interactions to brief phone calls on holidays and the occasional email. I built my career meticulously, climbing the corporate ladder with the same determination that had gotten me through college. By 30, I was a senior marketing director with my own corner office. Kayla, meanwhile, had dropped out of college after 2 years, moved back home, and cycled through a series of retail jobs. My parents never pressured her to find direction, instead cooing about how she was finding herself and exploring her options. I thought I'd successfully distanced myself from their toxic dynamic until last December, when my phone rang with my mother's number.
Taylor, we need to talk to you about something important. Can you come home this weekend?
I'm really busy with work, Mom. Can we talk over the phone?
This isn't a phone conversation, it's about the family. Please, Taylor, we need you.
Those last 3 words. We need you. How long had I waited to hear them? Despite my better judgment, I booked a flight home for the weekend. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was tense. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed. My father looked 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him, and Kayla was uncharacteristically subdued. They sat me down in the living room where so many childhood memories of being overlooked still lingered in the family photos, most featuring Kayla front and center, with me partially cropped out or looking away.
Taylor, we're in trouble. Serious trouble.
We remortgaged the house to help Kayla start her business.
What business?
I opened a boutique downtown. Fashion design has always been my passion.
Since when?
That's not important now. The business, it's not doing well. And the bank is threatening foreclosure on the house.
We need $75,000 to make things right. We know it's a lot, but you're doing so well in your career.
Let me get this straight. You want me to give you $75,000 to bail out a failing business that you funded for Kayla? The same Kayla who you put through college while I worked multiple jobs? The same Kayla whose every achievement was celebrated while mine were footnotes?
This isn't the time to dredge up old grievances, Taylor. We're talking about your parents losing their home.
And my dream. I just need a little more time to make it work.
I looked around at their faces, expectant, entitled, not a hint of irony in their request. All those years of being the responsible one, the overlooked one, the one who never asked for help, and now they wanted me to rescue them? Something cold and clarifying settled in my chest. I'll think about it. I need to see some paperwork first. The mortgage documents, the business plan, financial statements, everything.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. I knew we could count on you.
The relief on their faces made what I was about to do even more satisfying. Over the next few days, I reviewed their documents, inspected Kayla's boutique, which was essentially an overpriced closet of badly designed clothes, and spoke with their bank. The situation was even worse than they'd let on. They'd also taken out credit cards in my name years ago, when I was in college, and never paid them off. My perfect credit score had been dragged through the mud without my knowledge. On my last day home, I called a family meeting. I've made my decision.
Oh, wonderful. I told your father you'd come through for us.
I'm not giving you the money.
What? But you said...
I said I'd think about it, and I have. I've also spoken to a lawyer about the identity theft and credit fraud you committed using my information.
What are you talking about?
The credit cards, Kayla. The ones you and Mom opened in my name when I was 19. The ones that destroyed my credit rating for years.
That was just a temporary measure. We were going to pay those off before they affected anything.
Well, you didn't. And now I have a choice. I can press charges for fraud, or you can sign over the house to me.
This is extortion.
No, this is consequences. Sign the house over to me and I'll pay off the mortgage. You can all continue living here, but as my tenants. With a formal lease agreement.
You can't be serious. Where's your sense of family?
I couldn't help but laugh at that. My sense of family? Where was yours every time you accepted being put first? Where was yours when you let them take out credit cards in my name? Where was your sense of family when you watched me be treated as less than you for 30 years? They went silent. I don't think they had finally seen the light. Rather, I think they finally knew that they were out of options and in dire straits. In the end, they signed. They didn't have a choice. The house became mine, and I drafted a lease agreement with very specific terms. Ones that I knew that they couldn't meet, but they signed away without so much as reading it. The main item was that they would pay off the credit card debt that they had racked up within 2 months, something that I knew that they were incapable of doing. So for 2 months, my parents did manage to pay me rent. The irony was not lost on me. My own parents paying me to live in their own home, but when the 2 months were up, I confronted them about why they had not paid off the credit card debt. I told you that you would have to abide by the agreement that we set up.
And we have.
We've paid you on time both months so far, and we didn't complain even though you were charging too much. It's more than we can really afford to pay.
That's not my problem. However, you didn't pay off the credit cards like you agreed to.
Those stupid credit cards again? We thought you forgot about them and just accepted that they were now your debt to pay.
Why would I? Those cards were illegally taken out in my name, and you 3 morons spent all that money and dragged my name through the mud while you had fun. At any rate, the agreement you signed included paying them off within 2 months, and you didn't. So now I have to evict you.
You can't be serious.
I'm as serious as a heart attack.
But where will we live?
That's not my problem. The next day, I called the police and had my parents and sister escorted out of the house and threatened that if they returned, that they would be charged with trespassing. I also had an alarm system installed, and I was glad that I did, because the very next day, I got a call from the police that the security company that monitored the alarm system had them respond to 3 people breaking and entering my house. Sure enough, it was my parents and sister, and they were caught stealing the various belongings that were technically theirs, but were forced to leave behind in the house. Without a moment's hesitation, I had them charged with breaking and entering. The judge that was assigned to their case was lenient on them and only gave them 6 months in prison, but it was the principle of the matter for me. When they got out, they called me and begged for me to show them mercy and allow them to return to their house, but I refused. In the end, they moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment downtown. It was all the 3 of them could afford, considering how much debt they were in, and how none of them could get a job that didn't pay more than minimum wage. After a couple of years, I sold the house to a young family that needed a break. I even took a loss on the deal. It was worth it, though. Seeing the happy looks on the parents' faces as they told their children that they had bought a place where they could grow up gave me hope. Maybe the memories that they make in the house can erase all the bad ones that my parents and sister forced upon me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Then she smiled. She reached for the buttons on her shirt. And before I could stop her, she ripped it open and screamed at the top of her lungs. "Madeline, what are you doing?" She scrambled to her feet, backing away from me, still screaming. I began to hear loud footsteps, and soon the class was filled with the students.
He tried to touch me. He almost raped a high school student.
The moment those words left her lips, the entire class went silent. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. My mind screamed at me to say something, to defend myself, but before I could even process what was happening, a group of students surged forward. Hands grabbed my arms, shoving me toward the door.
You sick bastard! I knew there was something off about him.
I was 27 when I started teaching at Westmore High, and I was already counting the days until I could leave. I thought teaching here would be a great opportunity, a way to gain experience, save up, and move on to something better. But on my first day, I realized exactly what kind of place Westmore was. It wasn't just that I was the only Indian teacher, it was that I wasn't wanted here. The students made that clear immediately. The first day I walked into my first class, ready to introduce myself, it took a different turn. Before I could say a word, someone in the back whispered loud enough for the whole room to hear.
Great! A curry muncher!
They all burst into laughter, making me feel so embarrassed. I tried to figure out who the culprit was, but the students were masters at hiding their guilt. No one would meet my eyes. I was frustrated. It was just my first day of teaching, and I was already having issues. But I let it go. I told myself it was just one comment, just one student. Hell, I was wrong. Every single day was a test, a game to them. How much could they do before I snapped? I had no idea. They left garbage on my desk, wrappers, crushed up chips, sometimes even spoiled food. My whiteboard markers would disappear, only to turn up later with the tips sliced off so they wouldn't work. One day, I walked into my classroom and saw massive writing sprawled across the board in red marker, which said, "Go back to your country." I was shocked. Regardless of my anger, I thought they were too young to be such racists. I turned to the students, waiting for someone to look guilty, to shift uncomfortably, to show the smallest hint of remorse. Nothing. They sat there, relaxed, smirking, waiting to see what I would do. I didn't want to pour my anger on them. I just wished one person admitted so I would have the chance to talk sense into them. I probably made a mistake by not speaking up there and then. Anyway, I wiped it off and started the lesson. Even in the middle of lessons, they would throw balled paper at me whenever I wasn't facing them. And if I looked, they would pretend as usual. It didn't stop there. When I walked through the hallways, students would cough into their hands and mutter slurs under their breath. I'd sit in the staff lounge, eating my lunch, and overhear students outside the door, mocking my accent. An accent I didn't even have. I mean, even though I looked purely Indian, I'd spent over half of my life in America. Before then, I'd lived in Italy for 5 years. So, I had no Indian accent. I wasn't ashamed of my original accent. Hell, I sometimes feel bad for not having it. But it was insane that they were mocking me for something I didn't have. Then there was the time I assigned a history project. When I was collecting the papers, one student handed me a blank sheet with just 3 words written in the middle. Go back home. I kept it. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself that I wasn't imagining things. But if the others were cruel, Madeline Sinclair was their queen. She didn't just make my life miserable, she enjoyed it. She was the devil herself. And every day I woke up, I prayed and hoped she would arrive a changed person. But of course, that was a dream that would never come true. She came into my class late every day. Whenever I call her out on it, she would smirk and lean against the door frame.
Sorry, Mr. Sharma. I had important things to do. You wouldn't get it because the only important thing to you is dance.
The rest burst into laughter. Some even stood up and danced the way Indians did. It was so infuriating. While her minions did that, Madeline would be on her phone, pretending to not see everything happening. I tried taking her phone away once. She pulled it back before I could reach it.
Are you even allowed to do that? What, do you think this is India? Take your stupid culture to your country. America isn't India, got it?
And of course, she said all that using an Indian accent. I could swear she learned it. She sounded so local. She had time to learn the Indian accent, but never did any assignments. I ignored her and moved on with the lesson. But Madeline found new ways to push me every day. She'd lean back in her chair, raise her hand in the middle of a lecture, and cut me off before I could call on her.
Is it true that your people worship cows? Like, do you guys pray to McDonald's or something?
The class erupted in laughter. They always gave her reactions. I felt so angry and embarrassed, but I kept my expression blank and continued with the class. Another time, she faked a sneeze and immediately covered her nose.
Oh my God, I think I caught something from you. You don't think you gave me any Indian sickness, do you? I don't want to start dancing out of control.
She wiped her hands on her designer sweater and and pulled out a bottle of hand sanitizer.
Sorry, just being careful. You know how dirty foreigners can be, especially you Indians. I hear India lacks toilets. I hope Donald Trump sends some money over there to help build toilets.
No one stopped her. No one told her to shut up. If anything, they followed her lead as always. One afternoon, I walked into my classroom and immediately smelled something strong and familiar. I didn't need to inhale too much to know that it was curry. I wondered who was eating curry until I reached my desk and saw that it was covered in curry. Thick, yellow, and dripping onto the floor. Laughter echoed around me. Phones were out, cameras recording, waiting for my reaction. I swallowed hard and turned around.
Oh no, Mr. Sharma. Is it too spicy for you?
More laughter sounded. I was so angry, but I reminded myself that they were kids, and I had to be calm. I spent my lunch break scrubbing my desk, the smell of turmeric and humiliation clinging to my skin. I thought about quitting. Every day, I thought about quitting. But I didn't. I didn't because I refused to let them win. I didn't because I told myself that things would get better. But I was wrong. Because Madeline wasn't done. Not even close. And what she did next just changed everything. Firstly, I noticed Madeline becoming quiet. For weeks, I watched in silence as she transformed before my eyes. The girl who once mocked me at every opportunity, the one who humiliated me in front of the entire class, had suddenly turned polite. It started with small things, a nod in the hallway, a quiet greeting. Then, she started actually participating in class. She turned in her assignments on time. She asked thoughtful questions, never interrupted me, and even told off a student who tried to crack a joke at my expense. I didn't know what to think. One afternoon, I finally asked, "Madeline, did you hit your head or something? You've been different lately."
I guess I just realized you didn't deserve all that crap. That's all.
That was it. No further explanation. And as strange as it was, her change affected the entire class. If Madeline wasn't making fun of me, no one else wanted to either. Slowly, the classroom shifted. The whispered slurs stopped. The laughter at my expense died down. For the first time since I started at Westmore, I felt like a real teacher. And for the first time, I felt like I actually belonged. I was happy and relieved. Because truth be told, I had been one bad day away from reporting everything to the headmistress. Unfortunately, Madeline hadn't changed. She was just preparing and waiting for the perfect moment to ruin my life. It happened on a quiet afternoon during break. I was alone in the classroom when the door suddenly creaked open. I looked up and saw Madeline. As she stepped inside, something about the way she moved set me on edge. I watched her as she came to sit on my table.
You have such a nice voice, Mr. William.
Excuse me?
It's so calming, so deep. I changed because of you. You know? You made me see things differently.
Get to the point. I'm busy. She walked around the desk, stepping into my space. Before I could react, she pressed her body against mine, her hands sliding up my arms.
I want you, Mr. William.
I'd never felt so scared. I grabbed her wrists and pushed her away. She stumbled, lost her balance, and crashed onto the floor. Get outside. For a split second, she looked up at me with wide, stunned eyes. Then she smiled. She reached for the buttons on her shirt. And before I could stop her, she ripped it open and screamed at the top of her lungs. "Madeline, what are you doing?" She scrambled to her feet, backing away from me, still screaming. I began to hear loud footsteps, and soon, the class was filled with the students.
He tried to touch me. He almost raped a high school student.
The moment those words left her lips, the entire class went silent. I stood frozen, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. My mind screamed at me to say something, to defend myself, but before I could even process what was happening, a group of students surged forward. Hands grabbed my arms, shoving me toward the door.
You sick bastard! I knew there was something off about him.
I didn't do anything. Madeline's lying. But no one was listening. Their voices blurred together in a storm of accusations and disgust, pushing me through the crowded hallway toward the headmistress's office. Students peered out of classrooms as we passed, whispering and pointing. By the time we reached the office, My body was trembling with anger and fear. The headmistress, Mrs. Holloway, sat behind her desk, her normally stern expression replaced with shock as she took in the sight before her. She turned to Madeline, who was still crying tears that I knew were fake, and asked what the issue was.
He tried to touch me. I told him no, but he wouldn't stop. He grabbed me. He pushed me against the desk.
That's a damn lie. I never touched her. She came to me and I pushed her away. We continued going back and forth until Mrs. Holloway decided to speak.
William, I need you to leave the school for the day while we investigate this matter.
I wanted to fight. I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair. But I knew how this worked. A single accusation, and I was guilty in their eyes. So I left. They didn't call me back until the third day. The moment I stepped inside the main hall, I realized the entire school was gathered, including Madeline's parents.
Before we begin, I'd like to personally apologize to Mr. William. We have reviewed the security footage from the classroom. Not only was Mr. William innocent, but the footage also exposed months of harassment and bullying he has endured at the hands of his students.
I could see the shame on the students' faces.
As of today, Madeline Sinclair is expelled from Westmore High. Her actions were not only malicious but criminal. Falsely accusing someone of such a heinous act is unforgivable. And for you, her parents, I leave her future in your hands, but this school will not be part of it.
Madeline's mother breathed sharply, shaking her head in disbelief. Her father looked so angry. Madeline, for the first time since I had met her, looked genuinely afraid. But Mrs. Holloway wasn't done.
As for the students who participated in Mr. Williams' harassment, you will all be suspended for a full month.
Some of them gasped, some burst into tears. Mrs. Holloway ignored them.
And your disciplinary records will reflect your actions.
Some students looked like they wanted to protest, but they didn't. They knew they had no defense. Madeline didn't get a commendation letter. She didn't deserve one. With the report that documented everything she had done, I doubted any school would accept her. She had destroyed her own future. That wasn't enough. I filed a lawsuit for defamation, which I won. Madeline's parents were forced to pay me a huge amount and were so angry that they disowned her. I heard she now lives with her grandmother, who is a farmer, and forces her to work on the farm nonstop. As for me, my story gained a lot of attention. I was invited for interviews and even wrote a book, which became a bestseller. A tree is known by its fruit, not by its leaves. Thanks for watching.
Their hands wrapped around warm mugs like they were about to deliver comforting news.
It's Micah. His kidneys are failing.
I waited. I already knew where this was going.
He needs a transplant. We've all been tested. No matches.
The doctors think Noah might be.
There it was, the punchline. You ran tests on my son?
No, nothing invasive. But based on the records, there's a good chance.
He's your brother, Eve. You have to think about the family.
Noah is my family. And you want me to cut him open? To sacrifice his kidney for the same brother who hasn't spoken to me in 10 years? The same one you raised on a pedestal while you kicked me out to rot?
But he's
valuable? Because Noah isn't? Because he can't walk like Micah can? You laughed when I told you he was disabled.
He won't live a full life anyway. Be reasonable.
I stood up. You want a kidney? Go buy one on the black market. You'll get nothing from my son. You lost that right when you gave him nothing but disgust. I left, but I wasn't done. People say family is everything, but sometimes family is the blade that cuts deepest. I was 9 the first time I realized I wasn't loved the way my brother was. Micah, 2 years younger than me, was the golden boy. If I got an A, it was expected. If he brought home a B, it was a celebration. I cleaned the house, cooked when mom was sick, stayed invisible. Micah? He crashed his bike into the neighbor's car and still got ice cream after. At 15, I was working at a bakery after school. My mother knocked on my door one night.
You live under this roof, you contribute. Micah's still young, but you're nearly grown.
He was 13, playing Xbox on the couch. He didn't even know where the laundry room was. By 19, they kicked me out. I was dating Leo then, quiet, honest, hardworking. We barely scraped by, but at least we were free. When I got pregnant, I told my parents. They didn't ask if I was okay. They didn't even come to the hospital when Noah was born. When word got out that my son was born with cerebral palsy, their response?
Figures, with her luck.
Poor kid. Probably won't be much use to anyone.
I held Noah tighter that night, rocking him, promising him I'd never let anyone treat him like they treated me. Noah couldn't speak, couldn't walk without help. But he could smile. He could light up a room just by laughing. And Leo adored him. We were a small, struggling family, but we were real. Then they called me. 6 years of silence. And they called.
Eve, we need to talk.
My stomach dropped. I should have hung up. Instead, I agreed to meet. They chose a cafe halfway across town. I walked in to see both of them sitting there like the past never happened. Their hands wrapped around warm mugs like they were about to deliver comforting news.
It's Micah. His kidneys are failing.
I waited. I already knew where this was going.
He needs a transplant. We've all been tested. No matches.
The doctors think Noah might be.
There it was, the punchline. You ran tests on my son?
No, nothing invasive. But based on the records, there's a good chance.
He's your brother, Eve. You have to think about the family.
Noah is my family. And you want me to cut him open? To sacrifice his kidney for the same brother who hasn't spoken to me in 10 years? The same one you raised on a pedestal while you kicked me out to rot?
But he's...
valuable? Because Noah isn't? Because he can't walk like Micah can? You laughed when I told you he was disabled.
He won't live a full life anyway. Be reasonable.
I stood up. You want a kidney? Go buy one on the black market. You'll get nothing from my son. You lost that right when you gave him nothing but disgust. I left, but I wasn't done. The next day, Micah came to my house. He stood on my porch in a hoodie and sunglasses, looking like a rejected soap actor. I didn't even invite him in.
Eve, I didn't ask them to come to you. I didn't know they'd do that. I wouldn't want to hurt you or your kid, but I'm dying.
I stared at him. At the boy who got everything. The boy who never lifted a finger for anyone but expected the world to lift him. He looked past me, at Noah sitting in his wheelchair behind the glass door.
Does he even, would he feel it?
I slammed the door in his face. They were still coming for my son. If not physically, then through guilt, manipulation. They thought I was still the weak one. I had let them destroy me once. This time, I'd destroy them. I told my story. Everything. Childhood, favoritism, rent at 15, being thrown out, their laughter when they found out Noah was disabled, and now, how they wanted to harvest his kidney to save their perfect son. I attached photos, texts, voicemails, especially the one from Mom.
He's never going to have a normal life, Eve. Don't let that go to waste.
I published it anonymously on a parenting blog. It went viral in hours. By morning, news sites were sharing it. Family demands disabled child's organ to save estranged brother. People were furious. My inbox filled with support, donations, kind words, offers from lawyers. Parents of disabled children shared their pain. Then came the real storm. My parents' house was vandalized 3 nights after the article hit national headlines. Slurs were spray painted across their windows. Child abusers. Kidney thieves. Rot in hell. Someone threw bricks through their kitchen window. Micah was beaten outside a gas station, punched and kicked by 2 men yelling, "You sick bastard." They all went to the police. The cops couldn't do much. The public was on my side. Nobody wanted to protect the family trying to carve up a disabled child. They were pariahs. I didn't ask anyone to hurt them, but I didn't cry when I heard. I changed my number.
You've ruined our lives. We lost everything. Your brother's dying and you're letting him suffer.
You spiteful little bitch. This is what you wanted, isn't it? You've turned everyone against us. I'm going to die. Are you happy? All because of your freak son.
The last I heard, they fled the state, moved across the country. New names, burned their social connections to the ground. They were done. No more worshipped golden child. No more power. No more community to admire them. They were ghosts now. To finish it off, I mailed them each a package. Inside, a crayon drawing from Noah, scribbles, bright colors. His name and theirs written in shaky letters I helped him trace. And a note from me. This is the boy you wanted to cut open. He still laughs, still loves. You'll never see him again. You'll never touch him. And when he grows up, he won't ask why you weren't there. He won't even know your names. That was the last thing I ever sent them, and the last time they ever mattered. Noah's smile is what gets me through it all. He doesn't know the war I fought for him. He doesn't need to. He just knows his mommy dances with him in the kitchen and reads him bedtime stories about stars and pirates and wild things. He doesn't know that his body was once requested like an item off a menu, and he'll never know. Because I made sure the people who dared think that way were erased. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far. But then I see my son, alive, loved, whole. And I know I didn't go far enough. They wanted his body. I gave them the death of their legacy. That's the price of blood. And they paid it in full. Thanks for watching.